Hi Rob, here's your engine, which is upside down, the replacement engine, on the stand. So we've rotated that and we're just doing the conrod bearings now. We're just getting to the end of the process and there was just a slight deviation on the plan. I just wanted to tell you about and explain to you on a video. So we've checked out the registration number, the chassis number and the engine number from the advert that you sent us on eBay, and the good news is it is all correct. This is what seems to be the 66,000 mile engine, I think it was, or 60 something thousand mile engine, which all matches the MOT reports because we've done basically some background checks, and this is the engine that has come out of that black convertible that was pictured on eBay. So it's got fairly low mileage, 66,000 I think it was, or 64, something like that. And the initial plan was that we were going for, on the conrod bearings, we were going for King Racing bearings. And there's the part number there of the conrod bearings. And we're going for ARP conrod bolts. So initially we started doing the clearances on the conrod bearings. So this is at the front of the engine, cylinder number 1. We've done cylinder number 1 and 2. We've done all the old clearances of the old bearings, and they're okay, they're within spec. There's a few little markings on the crankshaft journals where they're not perfectly polished. There's some small markings, but nothing that seems terminal. Then going to install the new King Racing bearings, started with cylinder number 1, and we always measure the clearances. Basically that's measuring the gap between the crankshaft journal, which is this piece here, and the conrod bearing shell, which is that little small slither of metal just there, because we want to see what gap the oil has to pass through, because there's a tolerance. It has to be within a certain tolerance so that the car can operate correctly and safely. Now, putting the new King Racing bearings in, on cylinder number 1, this one here where we started from, the clearances we were seeing were 0.063, which is quite large a gap actually. Normally we would see clearances of 0.038 and 0.050, and those are nice and safe. They're regularly what we see in all BMW S engines. 6.3 is quite a large gap, and 7.6 would be an absolute maximum you'd probably want to run. Probably be quite risky running that, I think. Lots of people don't even check the measurements. They would just put the new set of bearings in and start the engine up and send it on its way. But it's better to know the clearances, and that's why we like to spend a little bit more time using this Plastigauge system, which is approved by BMW. So we squash a piece of plastic and tighten and torque the bolts on the new bearings up to flatten the piece of plastic, and then read off on the chart the thickness of it. And this one here, for example, is a 0.050, which is nice and safe and very traditional of what we would expect to see. So go back to the reason for this video. Installing the King Racing bearing on this one, cylinder 1, gave us a 0.63, which in our opinion is a little bit too large. Then we tried various other King Racing bearings, so what we'd earmarked for other cylinders, moving them into cylinder 1 to try and see if there was an issue with one of the shells, and it still couldn't be improved. 0.663 was the smallest we could get out there. In fact, that's almost a bit too large in our opinion. Then we moved to cylinder number 2 to check putting the King Racing bearings in, and we found that the best combination of using all the King Racing bearings we had in that packet, we're still producing 0.76, which is very large a gap and is right on the outside tolerance. I'd say I wouldn't really want to run a 7.6 in my engine. That's a little bit too large a tolerance, and we can't exactly answer why. So we've taken the King Racing bearings out and got them back in the box, and we've ordered a set of genuine BMW bearings, which do cost more money, but we want to try and prove a point and see if there was an issue with the King Racing bearings or whether there was an issue with the crankshaft journal on this new replacement engine that you bought. So we've put the BMW bearings in, and I'm pleased to report the clearances are coming out back in traditional values at 0.038 and 0.050, as is proved by this one here on cylinder number 6. That's about the width of that one, is a 0.50, so it's safe to continue with the BMW bearings. That's a little bit inconclusive. It doesn't tell us exactly what was wrong, but it does show an insight to there was slightly something wrong with the King Racing bearings that we tried in this engine in various configurations. And the reason for this video is to tell you that, and also explain that we're having to go away from that plan and therefore go for BMW genuine bearings, because they're the only ones at the moment that are proving to be a correct tolerance. And we've installed BMW bearings throughout the car, and we're just about to do finished one on number 6, and we've also installed BMW bolts. So the bearings are more expensive than the King Racing ones, but the bolts are a little bit cheaper than the ARP ones. It does make the job a little bit more expensive because the bearings are more expensive, but hopefully you can appreciate the reason and the need to do that, and the check-in is much better to do this now at this point rather than suffer a problem in the future because of poor workmanship where somebody missed a clearance issue. So if you've got any questions on that, let us know, but basically the BMW bearings we will be using in your engine now.